quiet town of Maplewood, Illinois, nestled between rolling hills and serene landscapes, a tragic event unfolded that would forever change the lives of its residents. Emily Thompson was preparing for what should have been the happiest day of her life. Born in 1972, Emily was cherished for her gentle nature and unwavering love for helping others. She grew up in a loving household. Her mother, Laura Thompson, was a dedicated nurse, and her father, Robert Thompson, worked diligently in a local factory. Emily was known among her friends as someone who would go out of her way to make others smile, always believing in the inherent goodness of people. From a young age, Emily exhibited qualities that endeared her to everyone she met. Whether it was organizing charity events at school, volunteering at the local shelter, or simply lending a listening ear to a friend in need, Emily was the embodiment of kindness and compassion. Her infectious laughter and radiant smile could brighten the darkest of days, making her a beloved figure in Maplewood. In 1994, at a community fundraiser event, Emily met Michael Harris, a few years her senior, whose charm was impossible to ignore. Michael possessed an enigmatic aura, often keeping his past shrouded in mystery. From the moment they met, there was an undeniable attraction. Michael exuded confidence, always knowing the right words to say, and carried an air of authority that commanded attention. Growing up in a rough neighborhood in Chicago, Michael had faced numerous challenges, and it was evident that his upbringing had left its mark. Despite this, Emily saw beneath his tough exterior, believing that he was a good man who had merely made some wrong choices. Their courtship was swift and passionate. Emily was drawn to Michael's charisma and the depth she perceived beneath his reserved exterior. Michael, in turn, was captivated by Emily's unwavering positivity and her ability to bring out the best in those around her. Their relationship blossomed as they spent more time together, sharing dreams and aspirations for the future. Emily envisioned a life filled with love, stability, and mutual support, believing that she had found her soulmate in Michael. However, Emily's family had reservations about Michael. They noticed that he could be controlling at times, subtle behaviors that hinted at a possessive nature. Robert and Laura worried about the influence he might have on their beloved daughter. Despite their concerns, Emily stood by Michael, convinced that he had changed for the better. She saw herself as the one who could help him leave his troubled past behind and embrace a new, peaceful life together. By 1996, just 2 years after their meeting, Michael proposed to Emily. The proposal was romantic and heartfelt, taking place under the stars at their favorite local park. Emily's family, though still hesitant, ultimately supported her decision, seeing the happiness she radiated. They believed that their daughter's unwavering faith in Michael was a testament to the strength of their bond. The wedding was scheduled for June 22, 1997, and the entire town of Maplewood was abuzz with excitement. It was set to be a beautiful ceremony at the local church, a historic building with stained glass windows and an elegant interior, perfect for such a joyous occasion. Friends and family gathered to celebrate the union of Emily and Michael, eager to witness their love story reach its next chapter. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect relationship, Michael harbored secrets that Emily was unaware of. Despite his promises to abandon his former ways, Michael continued to engage in criminal activities. He had a history of violence and was involved in illegal dealings that Emily had no knowledge of. Even more troubling was his ongoing involvement with Sophia Martinez, a woman from his past whom Emily had never met or heard of. Sophia Martinez was a name that only surfaced during the investigation, but her presence loomed large in the shadows of Michael's life. Sophia had been a significant figure in Michael's early years in Chicago, a time marked by hardship and desperation. Their relationship had been tumultuous, filled with both passion and conflict. Sophia was known in criminal circles for her cunning and ruthless nature, traits that complemented Michael's own volatile tendencies. As the wedding day approached, Emily began to exhibit signs of anxiety that her friends initially attributed to pre-wedding jitters. Unbeknownst to them, Emily was grappling with doubts about some of her life choices. She had heard whispers about Michael's relationship with another woman, but whenever she confronted him, Michael swiftly dismissed her concerns, assuring her that there was nothing to worry about. Emily struggled to reconcile these rumors with a man she loved and trusted. Despite the growing unease, Emily remained resolute in her belief that love could overcome any obstacle. She sought solace in her family and close friends, hoping that their support would help her navigate the tumultuous emotions that plagued her. Laura noticed her daughter's subtle changes in behavior, quiet moments of contemplation, a distant gaze during conversations, and an occasional bout of irritability that seemed out of character for Emily. Laura's maternal instincts urged her to probe deeper, but Emily remained guarded, unwilling to let anyone into the cracks of her doubts. On the morning of the wedding, Laura helped Emily get ready. As she admired her daughter in a pristine white wedding dress, Laura couldn't shake a nagging feeling that something was amiss. She had opposed the marriage from the beginning, sensing the underlying tensions that Michael concealed. Yet Emily had been steadfast in her decision to proceed, her determination unwavering despite her internal struggles. Now, standing in the church, watching her daughter prepare to walk down the aisle, Laura silently prayed that her fears were unfounded. The church began to fill with guests, their excitement palpable in the air. Friends, family, and well-wishers arrived early, filling the pews with vibrant conversations and laughter. The scent of fresh flowers and polished wood added to the ambience, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and joy. Emily took a moment to breathe deeply, trying to steady her racing heart as she awaited the arrival of her soon-to-be husband. Everyone was eager to witness Emily and Michael exchange their vows. However, a sense of unease lingered beneath the joyous facade. Michael, dressed in a sharp black suit, looked calm and composed as he stood at the altar. His eyes scanned the congregation, settling on Emily as she made her way toward him. No one could have anticipated the horror that was about to unfold. As Emily reached the entrance of the church, a sudden cold sensation washed over her. For a brief moment, she felt paralyzed, unable to move forward. Her mind raced with fleeting thoughts of doubt and fear, but she forced herself to push aside the unsettling feeling. Emily took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening as she began her walk toward Michael, who awaited her with a reassuring gaze. The ceremony proceeded smoothly, with heartfelt vows exchanged, and the symbolic act of the ring slipping onto Emily's finger, sealing their commitment. Just as the ceremony was nearing its end, a subtle shift occurred in Michael's demeanor. What had been a calm and loving expression turned cold and distant, though Emily couldn't quite place the change. The guests remained oblivious, engrossed in the beauty of the moment. As the priest asked Emily if she took Michael to be her husband, she opened her mouth to respond, but before the words could escape, Michael abruptly stepped back. In a swift and violent motion, Michael pulled out a concealed knife and plunged it into Emily's chest. A collective gasp of horror swept through the church as Emily collapsed, clutching the wound in her chest. Her once white wedding dress was quickly stained with blood, and chaos erupted as screams filled the air. Guests rushed to her side, but the severity of the attack left little hope. Laura, Emily's mother, was the first to reach her daughter. Kneeling beside Emily, her hands trembled as she desperately tried to stem the bleeding, but was futile. Emily's wide eyes reflected shock and confusion, unable to comprehend the betrayal by the man she loved. As Laura cried out for help, Michael stood frozen for a moment, the bloodied knife still in his hand. Without a hint of remorse, he turned and fled the church, disappearing into the streets of Maplewood. The guests were left in a state of paralysis, unable to process the brutality they had just witnessed. Some attempted to pursue Michael, but he had already vanished from sight. Panic spread throughout the congregation as the reality of the situation sank in. Michael had murdered Emily in front of all their family and friends. Within minutes, paramedics arrived, but it was too late. Emily died in her mother's arms. Her life abruptly ended on the day that was meant to mark the beginning of their future together. The church, once a place of celebration, was now a scene of unbearable grief. Laura was inconsolable, her cries echoing through the silent hall, while Robert, Emily's father, stood frozen, struggling to comprehend the loss of his beloved daughter. The entire town of Maplewood was left reeling from the tragedy. How could Michael, a man who had promised to love and protect Emily, commit such a heinous act? The community grappled with the shock and sought answers, questioning how someone so charming and seemingly reformed could harbor such darkness. Local law enforcement, led by Detective Sarah Collins, immediately launched a manhunt for Michael. Roadblocks were set up around Maplewood, and officers canvassed the area for any leads. Detective Collins knew that capturing Michael swiftly was essential to restoring a sense of safety and order in the town. Despite their relentless efforts, Michael remained elusive. Days turned into weeks, and the trail seemed to go cold. As the investigation deepened, Detective Collins uncovered a web of deceit and criminal activity that Emily had been completely unaware of. It became evident that Michael had a long history of violence and had been involved in various illegal dealings long before he met Emily. Further probing revealed that Michael had been in contact with Sophia Martinez, a woman from his troubled past. Sophia had her own history of criminal behavior and was believed to have played a significant role in Michael's descent back into crime. It was clear that Michael's involvement with Sophia had not only reignited his criminal ties, but also influenced his actions leading up to Emily's murder. As the investigation progressed, the town of Maplewood was gripped by fear. Residents became increasingly wary, locking their doors and avoiding going out at night, fearing that Michael might strike again. The tight-knit community felt the strain of mistrust and anxiety, struggling to reconcile the charming facade of Michael with the violent man he truly was. Detective Collins tirelessly pieced together Michael's movements in the days leading up to the wedding. Evidence suggested that the murder was premeditated, a calculated decision fueled by Michael's inability to escape his criminal ties. Interviews with Michael's acquaintances painted a picture of a man who was becoming increasingly erratic and desperate to maintain control over his life. Detective Collins discovered that Michael had been involved in several illicit activities, including drug trafficking and armed robbery, which provided him with the means to carry out the murder and evade capture. Meanwhile, Sophia Martinez emerged as a key person of interest. It was revealed that she had been the last person to see Michael before the wedding. The police suspected that Sophia might have either encouraged Michael to return to his life of crime or directly participated in the plan to eliminate Emily. The depth of Sophia's involvement became a focal point in the investigation, raising questions about her motives and the extent of her influence over Michael. As the investigation unfolded, the fear in Maplewood intensified. Residents locked their doors and avoided going out at night, fearing that Michael might strike again. The once tight-knit community felt the strain of mistrust and anxiety, questioning how someone they knew could harbor such darkness. Weeks passed with no substantial leads, and Detective Collins felt the pressure mounting. The town demanded answers, and the police department was under intense scrutiny to solve the case. Just when it seemed that the trail had gone cold, a breakthrough came unexpectedly. A local truck driver reported seeing a suspicious vehicle matching Michael's description near a remote gas station on the outskirts of town. Detective Collins and her team rushed to the location, hoping that this tip would finally lead them to the elusive murderer. Upon arriving, they discovered Michael and Sophia at a rundown motel a few miles away. The motel, secluded and dilapidated, provided the perfect hideout for the fugitives. The police surrounded the building, preparing for a confrontation. As dawn broke, the tactical team readied themselves to raid the motel. Detective Collins felt a mix of anticipation and dread, knowing that this could be the final showdown. Inside the motel room, Michael and Sophia had barricaded themselves, armed and ready to resist arrest. The police moved in swiftly, breaking down the door and demanding that Michael and Sophia surrender. A tense standoff ensued, with Michael refusing to comply. His fear and desperation were palpable as he brandished a weapon, determined to escape justice at any cost. Shots were fired in a desperate attempt to subdue Michael. The room erupted in chaos as bullets ricocheted off the walls and smoke filled the air. Detective Collins watched as Michael fought fiercely, ultimately succumbing to the gunfire. Sophia, realizing the gravity of the situation, surrendered without resistance. With Michael captured and Sophia in custody, the investigation officially concluded. Maplewood began the slow process of healing, but the scars left by Emily's murder remained deep. The community came together to support Emily's family, holding vigils and memorials in her honor. Laura and Robert found solace in the support of their friends and neighbors, but the pain of losing Emily was a wound that would never fully heal. Detective Collins reflected on the case, recognizing the importance of uncovering the truth and bringing justice to those who could no longer speak for themselves. Emily's story served as a haunting reminder of the dangers that can lie beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect relationships. Her unwavering belief in Michael's goodness, despite the warning signs, had cost her everything. Through her family's resilience and the community's commitment to remembering her, Emily's legacy became one of hope and prevention, ensuring that her tragic story would not be forgotten and that others could learn from the devastating consequences of ignoring the red flags in toxic relationships. Emily's funeral was held a few weeks after the incident, attended by hundreds of people from Maplewood and beyond. The church, the very place where Emily had been killed, was filled with flowers, and the atmosphere was one of deep sorrow. Laura and Robert were inconsolable, their grief almost too heavy to bear. The image of Emily in her blood-stained wedding dress remained etched in the minds of the townspeople, a stark reminder of the darkness that can reside within someone you love. In the months following the tragedy, the community rallied around Emily's family. Vigils were held in her memory, and friends and neighbors provided as much support as they could. Laura often spoke of the guilt she felt, how she had sensed something was wrong on the day of the wedding, but hadn't been able to stop it. Robert, a man of few words, withdrew into himself, finding it difficult to speak about the daughter he had loved so deeply. As time passed, the details of the investigation continued to come to light. It was confirmed that Michael had planned Emily's murder well in advance. He had confided in Sophia that he felt trapped by the idea of marriage and had no intention of starting a new life with Emily. The pressure of living a double life, one as a devoted husband and the other as a man involved in criminal activity, had become too much for him. Rather than walking away from the relationship, Michael chose a path of violence. Sophia's role in the crime was also examined closely. Although she hadn't physically committed the murder, she had encouraged Michael's growing resentment towards Emily, fueling his paranoia and pushing him further into a dark, destructive mindset. Phone records and letters between Michael and Sophia revealed how deeply entwined she was in the events leading up to the murder. While Sophia denied knowing that Michael would kill Emily on their wedding day, many believed she had played a much larger role than she admitted. In the years that followed, Emily's case became a symbol of both loss and the dangers of ignoring red flags in relationships. Domestic violence advocates and legal experts studied her story, pointing out the warning signs that had been missed. Michael's controlling behavior, his criminal background, and his secret relationship with Sophia. For many, Emily's tragic death served as a reminder of the importance of recognizing and addressing toxic behavior before it escalates into something far worse. Laura and Robert eventually established a foundation in Emily's name, dedicated to supporting victims of domestic abuse and raising awareness about the dangers of controlling relationships. They wanted to ensure that no other family would have to endure the pain they had suffered. The foundation held yearly events to honor Emily's memory, providing a space for survivors of domestic violence to share their stories and find support. Though the pain of losing Emily would never fully fade, her parents found some solace in helping others. Laura became a strong advocate for early intervention in abusive relationships, speaking at schools and community centers about the importance of recognizing the signs of danger. Her message was clear: love should never hurt, and no one should ever feel trapped or afraid in a relationship. Emily's story remains a heartbreaking example of how quickly a dream can turn into a nightmare. What was supposed to be the happiest day of her life had turned into a horrific tragedy that no one could have foreseen. Her trust and love for Michael, despite the warning signs, had ultimately led to her untimely death. But through her parents' efforts and the community's commitment to remembering her, Emily's legacy became one of hope and prevention, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten and that others could learn from the devastating consequences of ignoring the warning signs in toxic relationships. In the wake of Emily Thompson's brutal murder, the serene town of Maplewood was thrust into turmoil. The once vibrant church, now a somber backdrop, echoed with the silent grief of its attendees. Laura Thompson, Emily's mother, remained kneeling beside her daughter, her hands desperately pressed against the wound that had claimed Emily's life. Robert Thompson, Emily's father, stood nearby, his face pale and eyes vacant, struggling to comprehend the unfathomable loss of his beloved daughter. The immediate chaos of the massacre gave way to a heavy silence, punctuated only by the distant sounds of emergency sirens approaching. Friends and family members huddled together, their faces etched with shock and disbelief. Conversations that had once been filled with joy and anticipation were now replaced with whispered speculations and heart-wrenching cries of sorrow. Detective Sarah Collins, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for her meticulous approach, arrived promptly at the scene. Her presence brought a semblance of order to the devastated congregation. Detective Collins moved swiftly, taking in every detail of the chaotic environment. Her eyes scanned the room, noting the absence of Michael Harris, the man who had just committed an unthinkable act. As the initial responders attended to Emily, Detective Collins began coordinating with the local police force to secure the area and gather preliminary statements from witnesses. She approached Laura, gently asking questions about Emily's demeanor in the days leading up to the wedding and any unusual behavior she might have noticed in Michael. "It's just so hard to believe he would do this," Laura whispered, her voice trembling. "He seemed so perfect to us." Detective Collins nodded empathetically, understanding the depth of Laura's pain. "Did Michael ever mention any plans or express any doubts about the wedding?" she inquired softly. Laura hesitated, glancing towards Robert, who remained silent beside her. "Not that we know of. He was excited and seemed genuinely happy," she replied, though her eyes betrayed a lingering uncertainty. With no immediate leads, Detective Collins knew that capturing Michael would be paramount to restoring peace in Maplewood. She convened a meeting with her team, outlining the steps for a thorough investigation. Roadblocks were swiftly established around the town, and officers began canvassing the area for any signs of Michael or anyone who might have seen him flee the scene. As the days turned into weeks, the trail of Michael Harris seemed to grow colder. Despite their relentless efforts, there were no substantial leads to his whereabouts. Detective Collins delved deeper into Michael's past, determined to uncover any information that could lead to his capture. It was during these investigations that she stumbled upon disturbing details about Michael's history. Born and raised in a rough neighborhood in Chicago, Michael had been involved in various criminal activities from a young age. His involvement began with petty crimes, shoplifting, vandalism, but quickly escalated to more serious offenses, including armed robbery and drug trafficking. Michael had built a reputation as a man who could get things done, no matter the cost, often resorting to violence to maintain control and authority within his circles. Further inquiries reveal that Michael had maintained connections with his old associates, despite his promises to leave his criminal past behind. One name stood out in his history: Sophia Martinez. Sophia, a woman with her own tumultuous past, had been a significant influence on Michael during his formative years in Chicago. Their relationship had been complex, marked by both intense passion and destructive conflicts. Detective Collins discovered that Michael had recently rekindled his association with Sophia, raising red flags about the possible resurgence of his criminal endeavors. Phone records indicated frequent and secretive communications between the two, suggesting that their reunion was more than just a chance encounter. It was a rekindling of old ties that Michael had hoped to keep hidden from Emily. As the investigation progressed, Detective Collins began to piece together the possibility that Michael's return to criminal activities had not only jeopardized his relationship with Emily, but had also led him down a path of increasing desperation and instability. The detective hypothesized that the mounting pressure of balancing his criminal life with his commitment to Emily might have been a contributing factor to the tragic events that transpired on their wedding day. Meanwhile, the community of Maplewood grappled with the shock and fear that Emily's murder had instilled. Residents who had once felt secure in their tight-knit community now found themselves questioning the true nature of those around them. The realization that someone capable of such brutality could be hiding in plain sight created a pervasive sense of unease. Despite the growing fear, Detective Collins remained resolute. She expanded her search beyond Maplewood, investigating Michael's potential connections in nearby cities. Utilizing surveillance footage, tip lines, and informants, she scoured every possible avenue to locate the elusive murderer. A breakthrough came when a local informant provided a tip about Michael's possible whereabouts. The informant had spotted a suspicious vehicle matching Michael's description near a remote gas station on the outskirts of Maplewood. Detective Collins and her team mobilized quickly, rushing to the location with a team of officers prepared for any eventuality. Upon arriving at the gas station, they found Michael and Sophia Martinez at a rundown motel a few miles away. The motel, secluded and dilapidated, provided the perfect hideout for fugitives looking to evade capture. Detective Collins assessed the situation, noting the potential dangers of approaching individuals with Michael's violent history. With a strategic plan in place, the police surrounded the motel, cutting off all exits to prevent Michael and Sophia from escaping. Detective Collins coordinated with her tactical team, ensuring that every precaution was taken to secure the area and minimize the risk to both officers and the suspects. As dawn broke, the tension reached its peak. Detective Collins gave the signal, and the tactical team moved in to execute the raid. Inside the motel room, Michael and Sophia had barricaded themselves, armed and determined to resist arrest. A tense standoff ensued, with Michael refusing to comply with the officers' demands to surrender. His fear and desperation were palpable as he brandished a weapon, intent on fighting his way out. Shots were fired in a desperate attempt to subdue Michael, leading to a brief but intense exchange of gunfire. The room erupted in chaos as bullets ricocheted off the walls, and smoke filled the air, obscuring visibility. In the midst of the turmoil, Detective Collins remained calm and focused, directing her team with precision. Despite Michael's fierce resistance, the tactical team's training and coordination proved effective. Michael fought valiantly but ultimately succumbed to the gunfire, his violent life coming to an abrupt and ironic end. Sophia Martinez, realizing the gravity of the situation and the futility of further resistance, surrendered without further conflict. Her capture marked the end of a harrowing manhunt that had left the community of Maplewood in deep shock and mourning. With Michael apprehended and Sophia in custody, the investigation officially concluded. Detective Collins took a moment to reflect on the case, recognizing the intricate web of deceit and the tragic consequences of Michael's inability to escape his past. The town of Maplewood began the slow process of healing, though the scars left by Emily's murder would remain etched in the hearts of its residents forever. Emily's family, though devastated by their loss, found a measure of closure in the apprehension of the man responsible for her untimely death. Laura and Robert received support from their community, attending memorial services and participating in local initiatives aimed at preventing such tragedies in the future. Detective Collins documented every detail of the case, her dedication ensuring that Emily's story would serve as a cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring warning signs in relationships. Her unwavering commitment to justice provided a sense of solace to those who had suffered, reaffirming the importance of vigilance and support in the face of potential domestic abuse. As Maplewood moved forward, the legacy of Emily Thompson endured through the collective memory of the community and the initiatives established in her name. Her tragic story became a beacon of hope and a call to action, inspiring efforts to educate and protect others from the devastating consequences of toxic relationships. With Michael Harris captured and Sophia Martinez in custody, the investigation officially concluded, bringing a semblance of closure to the harrowing manhunt that had gripped Maplewood. However, the town's journey toward healing had only just begun. The scars left by Emily Thompson's tragic murder ran deep, affecting not only her immediate family but the entire community. Emily's funeral was held a few weeks after the incident, attended by hundreds of people from Maplewood and neighboring towns. The very church where Emily had lost her life was filled with flowers and the heavy scent of grief. Laura and Robert Thompson stood side by side, their grief almost too heavy to bear. Laura, Emily's mother, found it difficult to stop the tears that seemed endless, while Robert, her father, struggled to find the words to express the depth of his loss. The image of Emily in her blood-stained wedding dress remained etched in the minds of the attendees, a stark and haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of even the most seemingly perfect relationships. In the months that followed, the community of Maplewood rallied around Emily's family, providing unwavering support and solidarity. Vigils were held in her memory, offering a space for friends and neighbors to share their grief and pay their respects. The collective mourning brought the town closer, yet the sense of loss lingered, casting a shadow over everyday life. Laura and Robert found solace in the support of their friends and the community, but the pain of losing Emily was a wound that would never fully heal. Laura often spoke publicly about the guilt she felt, how she had sensed something was wrong on the day of the wedding, but hadn't been able to stop it. Her heartfelt speeches at community centers and schools emphasized the importance of recognizing and addressing the warning signs of toxic relationships. Robert, a man of few words, withdrew into himself, finding it difficult to articulate the depth of his sorrow. Yet his actions spoke volumes as he quietly supported his wife and honored his daughter's memory in his own way. Determined to transform their grief into something meaningful, Laura and Robert established the Emily Thompson Foundation. This organization was dedicated to supporting victims of domestic abuse and raising awareness about the dangers of controlling and toxic relationships. The foundation aimed to ensure that no other family would have to endure the pain they had suffered. Through educational programs, support groups, and community outreach, the foundation provided resources and a safe space for survivors to share their stories and find the help they needed. The foundation held yearly events to honor Emily's memory, each one more impactful than the last. These gatherings not only served as a tribute to Emily, but also as a beacon of hope and prevention for others. Survivors of domestic violence found strength in their shared experiences, inspired by Emily's story and the resilience of her family. Laura became a prominent advocate for early intervention in abusive relationships, frequently speaking at schools, community centers, and public forums. Her message was clear and unwavering: love should never hurt, and no one should ever feel trapped or afraid in a relationship. Detective Sarah Collins, having played a pivotal role in bringing Michael Harris to justice, continued her work with renewed determination. The case had underscored the importance of thorough investigations and the need to listen to the concerns of those affected by potential abuse. Detective Collins often collaborated with the Emily Thompson Foundation, offering her expertise to help educate law enforcement and community members about the subtle signs of controlling behavior and the critical importance of intervention. As time passed, Maplewood began to heal, though the memory of Emily's tragic death remained a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the importance of vigilance in relationships. The community implemented several new initiatives aimed at preventing domestic violence, including workshops, counseling services, and support networks for those in need. These efforts were a testament to Emily's enduring legacy, ensuring that her story would serve as a catalyst for positive change. Emily's story became a symbol of both loss and the imperative to address and prevent domestic abuse. Legal experts and domestic violence advocates studied her case, highlighting the warning signs that had been overlooked and emphasizing the necessity of early intervention. Emily's unwavering belief in Michael's goodness, despite the red flags, underscored the importance of not ignoring gut feelings and seeking help when something feels amiss in a relationship. The Foundation's work extended beyond Maplewood, reaching out to neighboring communities and even influencing statewide policies on domestic violence prevention. Laura and Robert were invited to speak at conferences and seminars, sharing their experiences and advocating for systemic changes to better protect victims. Their resilience and dedication inspired countless others, turning their personal tragedy into a movement for change. Emily's legacy was further cemented through the creation of scholarships and grants in her name, supporting young women who had survived abusive relationships and were striving to rebuild their lives. These educational opportunities provided not only financial assistance, but also a sense of empowerment and hope for the future. As the years went by, Maplewood transformed, its community strengthened by the collective effort to remember and honor Emily Thompson. The town remained vigilant, its residents more aware and proactive in addressing the signs of toxic relationships. The bonds formed through shared grief and mutual support fostered a sense of unity and resilience that would protect Maplewood from similar tragedies in the future. Detective Collins, now a respected figure in law enforcement, reflected on the case that had left an indelible mark on her career. She understood that justice for Emily was not just about capturing Michael, but also about preventing future tragedies through education, awareness, and compassionate intervention. Her commitment to these principles ensured that Emily's story would continue to influence positive change long after the initial shock had faded. In the end, Emily Thompson's story was one of heartbreak and tragedy, but also of hope and transformation. Her life, though cut short, had a profound impact on her family, her community, and the broader movement to combat domestic violence. Emily's legacy lived on through the Foundation, the policies it inspired, and the countless lives touched by the awareness and support it provided. Maplewood had been forever changed by the events of June 22, 1997, but through the strength and determination of Emily's family and the community's unwavering support, the town found a way to honor her memory and prevent such a tragedy from occurring again. Emily's legacy became a beacon of hope, ensuring that her story would not be forgotten and that others could learn from the devastating consequences of ignoring the warning signs in toxic relationships.